What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the We Three Kings Wrestling Podcast. It's been a little while. I've been busy becoming a dad, and life happens, but we are back tonight, and it's great being back. Along with me are the usual Brandon King and Troy Cook, and we probably have a month's worth of stuff to talk about, but we're going to focus on the big topics, talk a little bit about some injuries, because that seems to be like the major storyline in both WWE and AEW. We'll also be talking about the whole MJF drama and some recent news on the AEW championship. So make sure you tune in, you listen. If you want to follow us, we're on Anchor at We Three Kings Wrestling, as well as over on Instagram at We Three Kings Wrestling, where we'll post updates. So make sure to check us out. But we're not going to waste much time because we have a lot to discuss. And we're going to start in the WWE. And the big news from this past weekend at Hell in a Cell is that Cody Rhodes is hurt. Now, he was hurt coming into the match, supposedly from some sort of practice or live event the night before. He tore his pec. It didn't appear that he might wrestle in the match for how severe it was, but Cody was set on wrestling. And when he took off his jacket in the cell with Seth Rollins, the crowd just went quiet, just looking at the black and blue around his pec and on his arm. It was insane how he pushed through the match, but nonetheless, he won the match, and this appears to be the end of the feud between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. So first, I just want to ask you guys, what are your thoughts on him wrestling in that match? I mean, for having a torn pec and going through that, is he stupid? Is what like what do you think about that? And second of all, what kind of loss is this for WWE? He's going to be out, they say, 6 to 9 months. His surgery was today. He was the draw right now, and with so many people injured and with Roman Reigns out, and rumor is that he's not even going to wrestle at Money in the Bank. How much does this hurt WWE? Troy, what are your thoughts?
This hurts the company tremendously, and I think that's also why he actually ended up wrestling on Sunday night. If this would have been, dare I say, pre-pandemic, he would not have wrestled. Their roster right now is so limited due to cuts and due to injuries that I really think that he volunteered himself to push through and to wrestle this match. And right now, I'd take basically a Cody Rhodes that half power or half stat or half half ability over anybody else right now. It's going to be sad to see him go and be away for a while. I've heard everything from 3 months to 9 months. Um, 3 months meaning that he could be back on set and back on the air doing promos and things like that with very limited action, or outside chance 6 months being in full go. 6 months takes you up to about the Royal Rumble, and I wouldn't be surprised if internally that is the goal that they've set for themselves as a company and him individually is to be back for the Royal Rumble. Um, I didn't like how Seth Rollins attacked Cody on Raw after the conversation that he had with fans about being ill or injured and having to go away. As limited as they are right now in case or character, sorry, it would have been a lot more sense if they would have just kept Rollins as a heel or as a face, sorry, turned him face. He respected Cody, he shook his hand, he walked away, and boom, now you have the face of the company. But no, they go back and have to live on to what they're doing right now and beat another feud into the ground. And we have Seth Rollins now again being a heel and turning on Cody and hitting him with a sledgehammer and whatever else.
Wow. This is bad. This is really bad right now for the WWE. In hindsight, it kind of makes you wonder why they did to Edge what they did, because with Cody being out, now Edge has to step up and be the face of the company because too many folk are injured. That's the problem. And with Cody being out, I can see Cody being out for a little while and then not making his wrestling return until the Royal Rumble, making him win the Rumble, and then having him go into WrestleMania, and then God knows what's going to happen with the titles at that point, because you have to factor in right now that The Rock's not involved in any movies. And so maybe he'll be a part of WrestleMania. We don't know right now. But back to the question at hand, this is a devastating loss for the WWE, because Cody right now is the ticket. Cody right now is hot, and Cody has been coming into the company doing what he does best. To me, the fact that Cody wrestled that night in that match showed me signs of some of the promos that Arn Anderson used to cut about being a horseman. Cody may not have been a horseman, but he has horseman-like mentalities. If to coin Arn Anderson, coming back to those promos, to those shoot promos he used to do. But anyway, it's a tremendous loss. Prayers go to Cody. Hopefully he gets through this, which he will. He'll get past this, which he will, and hopefully he's back in the ring quicker than quick and sooner than soon.
Yeah, it's a shame that Cody just debuted back in April and back in WWE, and now we're just at the beginning of June and he's got to be out for a long time, because he was the draw. He was the push. People were going to see him, and it was going to be a big summer for him. I assumed that he was going to go after the title, but now that's not going to be possible. So WWE has to rewrite a lot of things. And again, a topic of tonight is injuries. Randy Orton's out with an injury. Rick Boogs got injured back at SummerSlam. There's many others that are injured. Roman Reigns, who is not going to be on TV as much. WWE is hurting to try to find that guy. And Troy brought up a point, and him and I discussed about the whole Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes thing on Raw the other night. We thought that Seth Rollins would have shook Cody's hand and let it go, put him over as a face, or at least a baby face, and have him carry on, because the crowd does like him. They react to him. They go along with his intro music. They like Cody, or I'm sorry, they like Seth. So I thought, all right, this could be a good turn. He could fill their shoes until Cody's back, or at least for the summer. And now, they had Seth turn on Cody, and it's like, where do you go from here? It's interesting to see what they'll do, what storylines they come up with, but Cody was the main guy that they're going to build off of besides Roman. So I feel bad for Cody. Of course, it's coming at a bad time. He has been performing well. The crowd has enjoyed him in WWE, but we just pray for the best for him, for a quick recovery, and hopefully, Royal Rumble time, he comes back and can win the Rumble. We haven't been able to talk about another storyline because it's been a little while since we've made a podcast. But Sasha Banks and Naomi, the tag team champs, last month, they were going to compete on Raw, but they did not appreciate the booking. They didn't like the writing of a match. They ended up putting their titles down and saying, screw this, we're leaving. They walk out of the building. WWE doesn't like that. They suspend them. They take away their merchandise. They remove them from the intro video, but we really haven't heard anything since, and we haven't heard anything about the women's tag titles since then either. Are they going to put them on somebody else? I mean, in my point, they're pointless in my opinion, but nonetheless, that's kind of what happened with all the drama. Some people are saying that WWE didn't want to release them because they didn't want AEW picking them. There's a lot of talk, but nothing's really happened since they've walked out and got suspended. And that was a month ago. So, Brandon, what is your take on all of this? When you first heard about this, what did you think? And what is your thought process on what will happen in the future with Sasha and Naomi?
I don't know. And that's the issue. I really don't know. It seems to me, because Troy and I talked about this, a lot of people like to live up to their own hype and think that they are their character, which I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Um, these are grown women that made a decision out of emotion. And anytime you make a decision out of emotion, and this is not just with wrestling, this is a life lesson. Anytime you make a decision out of emotion, it doesn't really end well. That's why you got to think, And I don't know what went on behind the scenes. I'm not sure what how it got hot and humid and everything of that nature. All I know is that this was a bad move, and again, we don't, there's one side, there's the other side, the truth is somewhere in the middle. We will never know the truth. All we really can just hear, all we really can just do is take the information of what has been reported and try to come up with our own version of the truth, when we will never know the absolute truth, because everybody has their own truth of the situation. It's a sad ordeal for them walking out. But as far as the women's tag team titles, I think that era is going to be over, because there's no more women. The tag team division in the WWE altogether is just done. I mean, sure, you have your male teams such as the Usos and the Street Profits, and and some other teams that we're forgetting right now. But as far as the women's tag titles, I don't know. That's not. It's it's not going to do anything right now, because there's really no two women that you can put together and say that's a tag team, except for the Iconics. Now they're gone. Okay. So it's right now with between Sasha and Naomi. I know Naomi's been posting some stuff post walking out. Sasha hasn't posted anything post walking out. But I believe this somehow, some way, somewhere along the line, we're going to find out the truth. We're going to find out what really happened. And when we do, we'll probably have an educated guess as to why it happened and what could have prevented it.
I'm going to take more of a hardline stance. Sasha Banks, from what I have gathered over the years, thinks she is an entitled little brat and a little snot. And yes, she is a draw. Yes, she is not hard on the eyes whatsoever. But this is the second, maybe third time she's pulled this. And I think they're doing the best thing possible right now, is they're letting her sit her ass at home and do absolutely nothing. The thing I've heard that I think is hilarious is, for every minute that she is suspended, they add that onto the end of her contract. So she can protest and pout and bawl and scream and kick her feet all she wants, but all she's doing is making her contract that much longer. And I'll tell you what, if I was Vinnie Mac, I'd let her sit at home. I would not release her, because first off, that's what she wants. Secondly, why let her go and go somewhere else? So either she, puts it back together again and quits pouting and fussing and goes back to work, or she sits at home. I don't know if those are guaranteed contracts or not, but I think it'd be funny if she didn't get paid at all. Naomi, I'm very, very, very disappointed in. I've read different reports that she was duped into following Sasha. Yeah, well, she's a big girl. She can make up her own mind. It's not like we're back in high school where we've got to follow the cool kid. She didn't have to walk out with her. And she has enough pull, or at least I would hope she has enough pull, being the, I guess you'd call it cousin-in-law of Roman Reigns, that she could stand on her own 2 feet and tell Sasha to go get bent. The fact that she walked out is very, very disappointing. Yeah, that's my little rant, but I'm tired of the whole situation. I'm tired of the entitlement mentality. I don't know of any other job that you'd go to right now. I know for sure Brandon and I wouldn't be able to do this in our office. Go and say, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. I don't understand why this is any different. Why wrestling behind the scenes isn't considered real life, because they're getting paid to do a job. And if you don't want to do your job, then there's consequences.
Troy, there's not even much I have to say after that. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth, and I can't even top what you said. But I feel the same way. Sasha Banks, I do believe she feels privileged, as she's talked in the past before. She just acts that way. That if she isn't at the top of the title picture or gets what she wants, then she's gonna throw a little fit, and she really hasn't been on the top for a while. And along with Naomi, that's what I heard too. Is Naomi followed in her footsteps. Originally, Naomi wasn't going to step out. She was upset, but she wasn't going to step out with Banks. But Banks told her to, so she followed suit. And again, she is a an adult. She can make those own decisions on. She can make those decisions on her own, but she didn't. And now they're just sitting and waiting. And honestly, they really don't need them right now. Those tag titles are pointless, in my opinion. They haven't been relevant since Banks and Bailey held them last. But I think that's something maybe they look at and just say we should just get rid of them and maybe put in a like mid title, such as you have the United States of the Intercontinental, putting in some sort of mid level championship for the women, to draw attention to. So whatever they're doing, it's been kind of quiet now. We'll let it pass. We'll have more to talk about once we hear from anybody in the WWE about what is the next steps with Sasha and Naomi. But it's been kind of quiet for the last few weeks on what's going on. So we will have more news on that when it breaks. But let's jump ship over to AEW. We have a lot to talk about over there. Unfortunately, we have to start off by talking about, once again, another injury, and this time to the new AEW champion CM Punk. He defeated Adam Page at the last pay-per-view to become the AEW champion, and that following week on Dynamite, he came out and spoke and said that he has to get surgery on his leg, which was successful. Surgery happened yesterday. It is unknown how much time he's going to miss. He didn't say anything, and they've been keeping it pretty quiet on what the exact surgery was, how long he's going to miss. But again, another probably not as impactful as Cody is the WWE, but what kind of loss does Punk, the new AEW champion, play in AEW, Troy?
Punk himself being pulled out of action isn't, in my opinion, that big a deal. He was gone from the wrestling world for what, 8 years or something like that, 6 years, whatever it was. And in all honesty, we learned to live without him. Having Punk is more of a novelty and more of a privilege than it is a necessity. The one thing I can't understand is, and this is the second, at least second or maybe third time that AEW's done this, when a champion is hurt, they don't strip that champion of the belt. They come up with what they're referring to as a, I'm hoping I'm saying the word right, an interim champion. They did it with, I think Cody got hurt with the TNT title, and then I think that's how Guevara got it originally. And then they had a unification match, and now it looks like they're on the same track with Punk, that someone else is going to become the basically substitute champion until he comes back, and then I'm assuming they're going to have a unification match from there. But to me, it would just make more sense continuity wise if they would just strip whoever it is hurt of the belt and basically, do a tournament, do a Royal Rumble or Battle Royal or whatever you want to call it, to do a new champion. When AEW first started, going on 3 years ago now, they ran I don't know if you want to call it a program, but they did a bit where they had rankings for their performers, and you had like top 10, and if I remember correctly, it was based on points, and I guarantee it's all scripted, but it was based on, wins and different things. That was cool and interesting because WWE hadn't done that, to my knowledge, or at least hadn't done it for a very long time. and it was different and fresh. That's something that they would bring it back would make sense on who would be the contender or who would be the I don't want to say heir apparent, but how the titles would be figured out. But the bit now about how we have, like I said, basically this the substitute champion, only because I can't say the word. Um, it's just weird, and I'm not necessarily saying it's good or bad. It's just weird. But getting back to Ben's question, I really don't think the fact that CM Punk is currently unable to perform is going to have much of an impact on AEW. They have more, Lord knows, more than enough talent to make up for Mr. Phil Brooks while he's recuperating.
On one hand, Troy is right. On the other hand, I'm going to have to say he's a little incomplete in his ordeal for this simple reason. As of right now, CM Punk is the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So that is going to be a major loss. To Troy's point, the fact that there's more talent in that AEW locker room right now than there is to count is not going to hurt as bad as Cody Rhodes as in the WWE. Right now, AEW can play a better hand right now because they got more talent you can shake a stick at. Some of that talent's going to get lost in the shuffle, but that's another story for another time. But the fact that he's gone is going to be a little bit of a blow, but in the meantime, between time, there is enough talent that can stand on its own and do what they need to do in order to get the program across. So is it a tremendous loss? Yeah, but is it huge? Not so much, because there's other people that can fill in the holes, rather as WWE, they're just shuffling around like a radio station trying to play the next 5 songs in a 1 hour rotation. But that's another story for another time. But it's going to be bad, but it's not going to hurt them.
It sucks for CM Punk. I mean, getting that far, coming back, and finally winning the championship, and then getting this injury. But it's not as big of a loss as Cody is to WWE because, again, AEW has that talent that can take over. And to Troy's point, it's interesting with the interim championship that they have. So what'll happen is that whoever wins the title at the next pay-per-view will hold the championship belt, and when CM Punk comes back, whoever that champion is, they will face each other to be the official champion. So again, I don't know why they don't strip it, but they still do the power rankings. But interesting enough, a lot of these guys weren't even in the match, and that's what we're going to talk about next, is about the match that happened last night on Dynamite, the Casino Battle Royal, and they had the winner face John Moxley. Why is that? Well, Moxley is the number 1 contender right now as per the power rankings, but Wardlow's second. He wasn't in that match, but he is trying to take on the TNT champion Scorpio Sky, so I get that. Adam Cole's third, he's injured. Hangman Page wasn't in that match, and Jay Lethal, as of now, is 5th, and he wasn't in that match. So I don't know how they come up with the wrestlers to fight in this Casino Battle Royal. But in the end, Kyle O'Reilly ended up winning that Casino Battle Royal and took on Moxley in the main event, which Moxley ended up winning. So now John Moxley will take on the winner of, there's 2 wrestlers facing off from New Japan at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view at the end of the month to become the AEW interim champion, which in my opinion, I assume that it's going to be John Moxley. I don't think they'd give it to a New Japan guy, but Brandon, are you surprised that O'Reilly won that Casino Battle Royal? Guys like Powerhouse Hobbs, Darby Allin, Andrade were in the match. They didn't win. It came down to Wheeler Yuta and Kyle O'Reilly. And do you think, and are you happy with, if John Moxley were to become that interim AEW champion?
I wouldn't have a problem with John Moxley becoming the interim AEW champion because John Moxley can hold his own. So that's no problem there. And honestly, it gives John Moxley another chance at a singles push right now while Brian Danielson is out right now. And we send our thoughts and prayers to him and wish him the best on his recovery. As far as O'Reilly winning the Battle Royal, I didn't have a problem with it per se because it's new blood that needs to, try to make a name for themselves. And I think O'Reilly has done that. So I didn't have a problem with the match overall per se. As far as Moxley being the one that could possibly get be the interim champion for right now, don't have a problem with that either. The battle royal in itself, I thought it was okay. It wasn't the greatest battle royal, but it wasn't the worst battle royal that I've seen. I thought there may be some potential people could come out of there. It was just really fast paced and it was really on the up and up. Definitely would have liked to have seen a lot more stars in that battle royal shine in there outside of Keith Lee, because I don't think that he's going to get that big of a push as I really hope that he would, even though in my opinion he deserves it. But other than that, I didn't have a problem with O'Reilly winning the battle royal at all.
I have two comments on it. First off, it feels good to be home and be disagreeing with Brandon. It's like the good old days. Secondly, the Joker and the wild card battle royal and all that stuff used to be part of the Double or Nothing pay-per-view because they were going with the gambling theme and the betting theme and what have you. And for some reason, it was made part of the pay-per-view back 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was its own event, which I'm not sure that happened, but that's neither here nor there. When it comes down to Mr. Moxley and Mr. O'Reilly, boys and girls, exact same thing I said I was afraid of is exactly what's happening right now. You look at AEW, and for the most part, especially on the men's side of things, it's almost like watching WWE from 2 or 3 years ago. Who are we featuring? Well, we're featuring the Hardy Boys. We're featuring Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly. Oh, wait, weren't they the Undisputed Era not too long ago in WWE? I'm sorry, but John Moxley, to most people, now may differ with this, but in my opinion, John Moxley will always be Dean Ambrose because that was his first taste of the big leagues, for lack of better words. Even Keith Lee, there you go, Brandon, there's your shout out. Even Keith Lee and Swerve Scott, they're WWE cast-offs. Brian Danielson, even Regal, they're all WWE cast-offs. I would have liked to have saw Darby Allin. I'm not sure why Hangman Page wasn't in that, outside the fact they guess they have other plans for him. But my God, did they blow his championship reign? That was the biggest travesty since the way WWE handled Big E. I don't know if he's healthy or not, but Sammy Guevara, it's happening what I thought would fear was going to happen, that for the most part, the boy genius Tony Khan's pushing his toys from WWE as opposed to his homegrown talent. And that's going to bite him in the ass when it comes down to contracts being up, because I could see a lot of these guys jumping ship and going to WWE. And honestly, it's nobody to blame but himself. The women's side of it, they push Jade Cargill, they push Britt Baker, they push Thunder Rosa. For the most part, they are all homegrown talent, or at least this is AEW's their first big break. Not so much on the men's part of it. And Wardlow, they're pushing Wardlow for the secondary title, which I understand. But mark my words, it's not going to be very long before he's going to be in the World Championship hunt. And go back and watch WCW from 97, 98. And Mr. Wardlow is nothing more than a reincarnation of Mr. Billy Goldberg. And it worked, and it's working for Wardlow. But again, it'd be really nice if they come up with something different, something real, something original.
Yeah, first of all, last night with the Casino Battle Royal, I wasn't a big fan of the match. I thought there would be better talent in there. As I read off the power rankings, nobody was in there that was in the top 5. But Moxley, he's not bad. I can see why they're doing the whole Moxley Kyle O'Reilly thing. And in all honesty, once he said that Moxley was in the match, I kind of figured whoever won the battle royal was going to lose to him anyways. So it really didn't matter who won. I would have liked to have seen Darby win or one of the AEW guys, but I think I forget who said it, but in all honesty, it sucks to a point that they're pushing the WWE guys, not the AEW guys. Sucks for the AEW guys, but like now they're all AEW guys. A lot of people jump promotions, they jump ship. And the problem is that all the WWE guys are going to AEW. When the AEW guys come over to WWE, the same thing's going to happen because it's the fresh new talent. Cody Rhodes, for instance. I'm not the biggest Cody fan, but now everybody's Cody fans because of something new, and he was getting the push right away. And I assume he would have been attacking Roman over the summer. So say you take a guy like Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, throw him over to WWE. The WWE fans are going to go nuts, and I would assume that Vince would be pushing these guys over just as Tony Khan is pushing the WWE guys on AEW. So I know it's a business. I know that some of these WWE talent that they're getting are better than their AEW talent. Because if you remember, we did a podcast where we did a AEW guy versus a WWE guy, and WWE still won. But that just means that we think that talent is probably better. So now put them over to AEW. They don't want to just let them sit back. They want to push them. Adam Cole's a very good talent that they're trying to push. Bryan Danielson, just as he was on WWE in WWE. John Moxley. So those are the guys that are getting the push. You see, like, Keith Lee, he was a kind of a mid-pack guy in WWE. That's how he is in AEW. So it's a business. I see that. I do want to see some of the AEW talent step up and get that shot. But again, it's a business, and I think if it was the other way around, it would be the same way over in WWE. We just don't see it because the AEW superstars haven't made their way over yet, besides Cody.
And I don't agree. And what I'm going to use to argue this is the fact that instead of AEW, you can use the TNA/Impact comparison with WWE. The ones that Vince pushes, we've talked about this on the air before, are his homegrown talent for the most part. AJ Styles gets crapped on a regular basis. So does Balor. Cody got pushed again, but Cody is a WWE boy. He came up with WWE. He come up in Florida Championship Wrestling. He went home. Roman Reigns is a homegrown talent. Seth Rollins, for the most part, is a homegrown talent. Yes, I know he came from ROH, but he wasn't that big until he hit WWE because for whatever reason, ROH never had the ability to blossom the way it should have. Big E is a WWE talent. Drew McIntyre is a WWE talent. So the ones that come up from other corporations, federations, companies, wherever you want to call them, most of the time are held back by Vince. Samoa Joe, he was held back. I can go, tit for tat with this, but just in my opinion, I don't think WWE would push aside their talent for the shiny new toy like AEW does.
So, and maybe you're right to a point, but I'm just thinking about some big names from AEW. Like, we're going to talk about MJF in a minute. If MJF moves over to WWE, Troy, do you think that he would kind of fall in that mid pack, or do you think that MJF would go right to the title picture?
I think they'd start him out mid-level. I don't think they'd hot shot him straight to the main event. It would depend on, I guess, who was hurt, who wasn't, who's around. But I can't even see MJF right now in WWE due to the way he acts, and we'll get to this in a second. But no, I don't think they would hot shot him into the championship picture right away. Would he get there eventually? Maybe eventually. But do I think he would have lasting power? I don't know. It might be a fact that he's a big fish in a smaller pond, overpopulated pond, but he's a big fish in a small pond with a lot of geriatric fish in the pond with him. So I don't know. It'd be impossible, or at least in my opinion, impossible to predict how MJF would be handled in the WWE, but you would not see this MJF in the WWE because this is not the Attitude Era anymore. And without getting into more of what we're going to talk about later, his mouth, his attitude, his vulgarity would not be tolerated right now in WWE.
Well, let's jump on that train while we're on it, because that's where we're headed to. And let's talk about the whole MJF thing. Just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, at the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, the day before he was set to do a signing, and he didn't show up. There was rumors that he had a flight out of Las Vegas heading back east, and they thought he was going to get on this plane. He never did. He showed up. He wrestled at Double or Nothing. He lost to Wardlow, and then he came out on Dynamite that week and just went off. He said, "I'm talking as Maxwell Freeman," and he just started bashing everybody, bashing Tony Khan, saying how he's going to make money elsewhere, go to WWE. All Tony Khan does is pay these ex-WWE guys. And if he was an ex-WWE guy, Tony Khan would probably treat him better. He said that Tony Khan should be out in the crowd as a fan and not making the rules in the back. It appeared to be like it was another MJF promo and possibly a work, but towards the end, he had his mic cut for using the F word live on TBS, and usually they let you get away with a couple swear words, and lately a lot more than usual, but the F word for sure not. So he did swear at I believe a camera guy or somebody came up. Then they cut his mic. He threw the mic, and when they cut to commercial real quick, when it went off air, people in the crowd showed MJF going out through the crowd, and that CM Punk was coming out. Before that, CM Punk was wrestling in a match with FTR. So I don't see, in my opinion, how it was a work if CM Punk then came out afterwards, maybe to offer some advice or to try to calm MJF down. But it is rumored that they're not going to allow him cut a promo on TBS or TNT anymore due to that language. So, Troy, I guess we'll get to you first. What are your thoughts on the whole MJF blow up, Pipe Bomb 2.0? Is it a work? Is it not? Just your overall take on it.
I don't know if it's a work or not. If this is completely storyline based and this is a work, I lose that much more respect for MJF and Khan, because with him not showing the meet and greet, he lost a lot. He left a lot of fans high and dry, and these are fans that paid hard-earned money to meet him, to interact with him, to be with him, autograph, talk to him, whatever. And if this is a work, then I've lost what little respect I have for MJF as it is. Flip side of that is, if this is legit, then I still lost a lot of respect for him, because how dare he slap the fans in the face when we're the ones that pay to see him and basically, in all intents and purposes, pays his paycheck. I've had issues with the character almost from the very beginning. I'm I have no problems with someone being a smart aleck, being cocky, being arrogant. I mean, hell, I am. But he goes off on his tangents. He gets very derogatory. He gets very sexual. He gets very vulgar, and I just I don't see the point in that. Even when Austin was in his heyday back in the Attitude Era, he was not sexually vulgar. He was not over the top. Um, he stayed in character with being a redneck that didn't like his boss, but that was about it. Um, I don't think it's a rumor that TBS doesn't allow him to cut promos anymore. I think it's a fact that he's not allowed to have the microphone anymore. And if you take the microphone out of his little hands, you've completely destroyed that character. So I don't know what's going to happen with MJF. Um, I don't know. If he was disciplined and was, basically informally suspended, I have no problem with that because I think he deserved it. He made his bed and now he can lay in it. But if, like I said, if this is a work and this is all storyline, then shame on him and shame on Khan.
I couldn't agree more with what George said. So let's just stay there for a little while. If either way you look at this, MJF just committed career suicide. Now, this is where Troy might disagree with me on this one because what some would say maybe this is just as bad as Sasha and Naomi walking out, but this makes Sasha and Naomi look like two quiet schoolgirls. Whereas this thing with MJF makes him look like, okay, this guy really believes he is his character, really believes that he is who he's supposed to be, and likes to think that his crap doesn't stink. Okay, so that's the way this works. I don't know what is going on inside his head, but I'm gonna tell you something right now. MJF, in the words of Jake the Snake Roberts, has caused a little. There's gonna be some repercussions that come out of this because what you have done is you've upset the balance of that whole locker room. There is a way to do it, but it must be done professionally and behind closed doors. At least, let me go back. Compared to what happened with Sasha and Naomi, that was done behind closed doors. It just leaked out. It just went out in public, but they didn't go on TV and start bragging about it and everything of that nature. Did did he not learn anything from when CM Punk did his pipe bomb years ago? Did he not learn anything when Road Dogg Jesse James and BA Billy Gunn did their pipe bomb at TNA years ago? Did he not learn? Did he not learn anything from that? So my thought process is that here's the thing: if he has not learned the lesson of what he went through, then he's failed and doomed to repeat it. Honestly, I don't see anybody else giving MJF another shot at it because realistically, he shot himself in the own foot, and right now it's bad.
All right, so real quick for you guys, what would you think if MJF signed with WWE? Like, what would your initial thoughts be? How would you perceive that if next week we hear, that he's fired from AEW like he requested it, and now WWE's picking up? What would you take that as?
I think they would be, much as I hate saying this, and it pains me to say this, they would probably be stupid not to pick him up, but he would have to have some kind of a mentor slash babysitter backstage, and he would have to be kept um, on a script and would not be allowed to go off script. Um, and if he goes in the WWE locker room, like I've heard he's in the AEW locker room, he's gonna look at an old fashioned ass whooping because I don't see Orton putting up with it. I don't see Roman putting up with it. Um, even Rollins. I don't see I just don't see him fitting in WWE right now the way he is right now. I don't know. I'm like Brandon for once. I think he may have shot himself in the foot and unless he goes to GCW or one of the lower promotions where he can sit and curse and swear and do all his antics and nobody's going to care. I don't know if he's going to get another shot to big stage unless in the bright lights, unless he changes a little bit. And I don't know if he can change because this is his personality and this is what he is. That's the problem. That's the rock and the hard place right now. Is I would not be surprised if this is MJF in real life. I hope it's not, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And if it is, like Brandon said, he's basically committing career suicide.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I honestly think he's like this, at least a little bit in real life. I mean, I've seen him in different interviews and stuff, and he acts this way again. I don't know if this is just for interview, but I honestly think that this is who he is, and is how hardcore he acts this way. There's no way he takes a little piece of that. But I think if he goes to WWE and he acts that way, Troy, I agree that uh, guys like Roman and Randy, they're not going to put up with that. Drew, the WWE has more professional talent, and they listen and they follow the script more tight because it's more of a family show, and he cannot get away with saying some of that stuff. Kevin Owens once in a while will get away with saying a couple curse words, but nothing really bad. And putting MJF there with that vulgarity is not a good match for the WWE. So again, he is a interesting, good talent. I think that WWE would pick him up, but there'd be a lot of contingencies. We don't even know if AEW is going to fire him. We don't know if he's just going to sit in the back. He said that he wanted fired, but there has been no word, and that was 2 weeks ago, on what is going to happen with MJF.
Ben, have you noticed with the wrestling events that we have went to that there is a distinct difference in the fans and the crowd at AEW as opposed to WWE? WWE, from the one we went to back in what I think was last July or August, the three of us went to the one in December, and then Ben and I and some friends, my wife went to the one in I guess it was March, April. WWE is very family oriented. There's a lot of families there with kids, a lot of the parents with kids, even grandparents with kids. The two AEW shows I've been at are primarily adults, and I'm even thinking, looking back on it, maybe even I'd say the 18 to 30 some year olds or 40 some year olds, and very little kids from what I can remember and from what I saw in the crowd. So maybe MJF is a product of his own environment where he knows he has an adult audience. He knows what he can get away with as opposed to being the focus of kids and being around kids. That's another reason why I don't think his act would fly in WWE, is because they pride themselves too much, especially within the last 10, 15 years, as being a family environment, a family organization.
Oh, I 100% agree with that, Troy, and from seeing it in person, is that the WWE goes after a different age group. They're for everybody. AEW, technically anybody can watch, but they're more suited for that younger generation to the older, somewhere like you said, that 18 to 30. It really strikes them because they have more intense, more hardcore. There's more blood. It's a different environment with their matches and the language that they're allowed to use. So it's definitely for a different age group where WWE could suit anybody. AEW is only for teens and older. But I think that's the target market, though, and the people they want to draw in. I've talked to people that are getting back into wrestling because of AEW, not because of WWE, because they like that about it. And that these people are older people. So it's definitely a different target market. So if MJF would jump ship over to WWE, I think that he would 100% have to cut it down. Whereas some guys in WWE, like a guy like Kevin Owens, he tries to get away with swearing sometimes. I feel like he'd be a different beast over on AEW because he could get away with things. So it's definitely a different target market. But it suits, again, like for me right now, AEW, I enjoy more because it just suits me better with how they're able to say whatever they want, and the matches are a little bit hardcore. Whereas the WWE, then you watch, is a little bit calmer. But it just depends what you like. Both great talent on both shows. It just depends what you like. So before we end our podcast, I want to talk real briefly about another title added to AEW, and that is the All Atlantic Championship. And as of now, it appears to be only for international talent to fight. So there's going to be a tournament. A match happened last night where Pac defeated Buddy Murphy. Other matches that will occur is Penta versus Malachi Black, Miro versus Ethan Page, as well as unknown competitors from New Japan. So those winners of those matches will have a fatal four-way at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view to determine the All Atlantic champion. First of all, what are your thoughts on this title? And if it's only for international wrestlers, what are your thoughts of that? And who do you think the first winner will be of this? And real briefly, Brandon, before I get to you to let me know your thoughts on that, I just was counting how many titles there are, and I believe there's 15 in AEW if you count the Ring of Honor titles. You have the AEW title, the TNT title, the women's title, the TBS title, the AEW Tag Team Championships, the FTW Championship. Now, and I didn't think this would happen, but the winners of the Owen Hart tournament have a championship. Adam Cole and Dr. Britt Baker. The Ring of Honor has a pure title, the TV title, which we saw already defend on Dynamite, the Ring of Honor title, the Ring of Honor women's title, the Ring of Honor tag belts. You have the AAA tag belts, and now the All Atlantic title. And rumors are that they're going to bring in a trios title, which I'm not really upset about. But again, another title added to the mix. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this new All Atlantic Championship?
Before I do that, can I go back to the previous conversation that you two eloquently just
jump
had?
in. Yeah.
If you, because my mind just went back to what Troy said when Troy said something, because I thought about who would be very impressed with MJF right now if they were still in business would be the original ECW and Paul Heyman. If you take MJF and drop him into 95, 96 ECW with all those guys, he would survive because ECW just had that type of style and they didn't care. But as far as MJF going anywhere else right now, I don't see that because he's going to be a cancer in that locker room wherever he goes. I don't care if he goes to Impact. I don't care if he stays at AEW. I don't care if he goes to WWE. I don't even care if he goes to some other promotion or if he goes to New Japan. He is going to be a cancer in that locker room because of his words, his actions, and his speech. Now, moving on to this subject at hand, this is nothing more than what I like to call AEW's version of the Intercontinental title. That's exactly what I thought of when I saw that championship. This is nothing more than AEW's version of the Intercontinental title. If anything, I say give it to Buddy Murphy. I know he's a WWE guy, and we've been having this conversation all night long about how AEW is not pushing their homegrown talent. But for right now, I say give it to Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy really didn't have that great of a run when he was in WWE. So maybe this will be an opportunity to get him some shine to get that title. Now, if Penta gets it, I won't be upset because that man can move in the ring. But it's a toss-up of who's who. But in my opinion, this new title in AEW is nothing more than AEW's version of what we call the Intercontinental title.
It won't be Murphy because Murphy lost last night to Pac, but it doesn't mean that Murphy gets the title in the future. So, Troy, thoughts on the title?
AEW's title scene is becoming the hold on a second while I get my dog shut up. AEW's title scene has become the millennials version of life. Everybody gets a title as long as you show up and do it. Then you deserve a title, just like everybody deserves a medal and everybody deserves a trophy, no matter if their baseball team finishes in first place or last place. It doesn't matter to them. That's what AEW is turning into title wise. Is that everybody's going to have a title of some sort? They're even, from what I've heard, and actually Ben, I think I got this from you. They're talking about adding in their set of titles being the six-man tag titles, which is going to be for those groups that have teams of three. That could actually be intriguing, but it's just getting ridiculous now how many titles they have, and how everybody deserves a title, everybody deserves a shot or whatever. But you can do that when you have a roster as bloated as AEW is right now. What I would like to see them do is actually have the Boy Genius take Ring of Honor seriously and make it pretty much its own brand or its own promotion, like NXT Black and Gold used to be, or Black and Yellow used to be, where it's part of AEW, but they do their own thing, they follow their own rules, they have their own booking, they have their own stars. That's what I would like to see happen. And I'm quite convinced now the world's coming to an end because I agree with Brandon yet again tonight, where MJF would be just perfect for the classic ECW back from the mid 90s to the late 90s. Yeah, he would be able to get away with what he gets away with now at AEW back in ECW. There'd be no problem with that. And I was talking about if MJF went WWE, he would need a babysitter. Maybe Paul Heyman would be that babysitter and would be that person to get him under control, because he has shown that he can adapt to the different styles. He was with the raucous, vulgar group with AEW, or I'm sorry, with ECW, but he has learned to temper himself and his attitude and mouth to become the primary manager in WWE for the last, probably off and on for the last decade or so.
Yeah, interesting take. Jump into the titles. I think that AEW has too many, but I think it's because you tie in all those other titles from Ring of Honor and now the Owen belts. Otherwise, I think it's just as much as WWE. The thing is, though, I agree with Troy that they need to take Ring of Honor and make it that brand, like NXT. So have the Ring of Honor wrestlers on a certain night and make it competitive and make it good. He has the opportunity to. Will he do it? I don't know. But that's kind of why they have those many belts. But the Atlantic title doesn't really intrigue me as much as the trios title that they would have, because there is a lot of factions. That's one thing that AEW gets right. And I think we'd have some really good competition. So if that's announced, hopefully it'll be announced sometime over the summer. That one would intrigue me the most. But if I had to pick a guy to win the first of all Atlantic title, I think it's going to be Miro. He came back. I think he's going to dominate the competition and win that title. So that's all we got for tonight. It was a good episode, nice long one. We took some time off. We appreciate the support while we were off. We got a lot of views when I came back to look at how we were doing. We had a lot more than I thought we would. So we're pushing 1,000, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a stepping stone in the right direction. So if you enjoy listening to our podcast, make sure to share it with those folks that are wrestling fans. Make sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram at We Three Kings Wrestling, as well as on YouTube at We Three Kings Wrestling. And we will be back next week with some more WWE and AEW information. And we'll be definitely ready to share it with you guys. If you guys ever have any questions for us, disagree, agree with us, make sure to put it in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, or you can put it in the comments on Instagram. So it's great to be back. glad we got to do this tonight. And I hope you guys all enjoy your weekend. Have a good one.